Hi, everyone. I'm Steve here with Pastor Victor Brode again. Thanks, Pastor, for being with us.
Glad to be here. Interesting subject today.
Yeah, it's one that I like to talk about. It's like, do we really believe God? Do we really believe that he parted the Red Sea? Do we really believe? People in the church say, yeah, I believe it, but do they really? Because the way that they behave would change if they really believed it. Do we believe that Jesus, you know, can stop a storm with a word? I do. I'm one of those maybe strange people that reads the word of God and believes it. But
And if you read it closely, I'm sorry, if you read the various accounts of that, he not only stopped the storm, it was perfectly calm, perfectly calm. And the disciples are scratching their heads that this kind of thing can't happen, but this is the kind of thing that Jesus does. And we we need to understand who he is and how he works in our life. If we kind of put him on a shelf and a pedestal and come to church or whatever it is just once a week, there's distance, there's almost a superstition about it, and that's not what Jesus is. He's the real Lord of all the universe, and he loves you and me and everyone out there. He has a greater plan for, and we need to walk in it, to discover it, because the more you take steps toward him, the more you realize that power that's there. And he does calm the storm, and I've seen it again and again in my life. uh, Miraculous things. God works that way, even in this age. And our expectations need to be set a little bit higher. So I'll stop for a moment here.
yeah, I tell people this sometimes because it's about faith. It's about believing God. And if you think about it, people who are looking at the word of God from a worldly perspective, not much of it makes sense. It doesn't make sense. And so now they try to relate things in their life, what does and doesn't make sense. Well, faith in God, it doesn't make sense. The math doesn't add up that a couple fish and a few loaves of bread can feed 5,000 people. The math doesn't add up. It makes no sense. And probably from a worldly standpoint, someone who's reading the word of God, it's not going to make sense because that's the whole point, right? It's kind of the point so that we can believe God and trust him even without seeing and believe him. I think that's part of the point of, yeah, it doesn't make sense to the world, but we believe it. And so then when things happen in our lives, like what you're talking about, where the storm in our life is calm and good things happen and whatever happens in our life that doesn't make sense, we can still trust God because we believe the things that we read in the Bible, right?
Yeah, and part of it comes together. You read his word, and it feeds not your body, but your very soul. And when you feed it and exercise it, you become stronger. And we have too many people that are spiritual weaklings that don't dwell in his word. And when you do dwell in his word, it's not a faith that you whip up. It's the reality that you see and that you walk in. You keep testing it and you keep learning more and more about who Jesus is. And suddenly you get it. It makes total sense. It's not a blindness to reality. It's an openness to what God does. It's who he is. But if you just step back and pull away, it's all from a distance and it doesn't make sense. And I really agree with you there. You've got to read, you've got to do things for the Lord. And if you don't, it's just, oh, what are those crazy people doing? But when
Yeah.
you do walk in that, it changes everything.
Yeah. Yeah. And then pretty soon, what doesn't make sense does make sense,
Yes.
So great conversation, Pastor. Thanks for being with us, and we will talk to you next time.
All right, great.